Whether you're shopping for a new television at Best Buy, picking up tools at Stanley Black & Decker, or buying athletic wear from Adidas, you'll find your purchasing power dramatically reduced.
I'm worried about the tariffs.
Why?
Because it's going to make most of what I buy more expensive.
Today, we'll examine 10 major U.S. companies that have doubled their prices since tariffs began. Procter & Gamble, the hidden tax on your bathroom shelf. When you reach for that bottle of Tide, roll of Charmin, or pack of Pampers, you're not just buying essentials for your family. You're now paying a hidden tax, one that wasn't voted on by Congress or approved by the American people. The entity behind these everyday products? Procter & Gamble, a household name that touches virtually every American home. The company behind brands like Tide, Crest, Pampers, Gillette, and dozens more that fill your cabinets. But here's what P&G isn't advertising on their colorful packaging. They're planning significant price hikes across their product lines, and the reason is clear: tariffs. P&G's own CEO John Mueller told CNBC that price increases are likely as tariffs drive up costs. Their CFO Andre Schulten further revealed the company is calculating what combination of pricing over what period of time will offset these expenses. In plain English, your essential products are about to get more expensive, not because they're better, not because they cost more to make, but because of a trade policy that's acting as a stealth tax on American families. Think about it. These aren't luxury items. They're diapers for your baby, soap to keep your family clean, toothpaste for your children's health. These are necessities that families already struggling with inflation cannot simply choose to go without. The impact falls hardest on those least able to absorb it: a single parent checking prices at Target, a senior citizen on a fixed income, a young family trying to make ends meet. They're all paying this hidden tax with every shopping trip. P&G products have enjoyed our brand loyalty for generations, but as prices rise, many households will be forced to abandon trusted brands for cheaper alternatives, sacrificing quality or performance out of financial necessity. In what world does it make sense to tax diapers and detergent in the name of national security? When did making everyday hygiene more expensive become an economic strategy? And who exactly benefits when American families have to stretch their budgets even further just to maintain basic cleanliness? The next time you pick up that bottle of Tide or pack of Pampers and notice the higher price tag, remember, this isn't just inflation. This is a tax policy choice with your family's budget as collateral damage. Is your family feeling the impact of these price increases? Let's move to luxury items. Ferrari, luxury tax or economic strategy? The sleek lines, the roaring engine, the iconic prancing horse emblem. Ferrari, the very definition of automotive luxury and exclusivity. For most Americans, owning a Ferrari is a distant dream, a symbol of wealth few will ever attain. But this Italian luxury automaker is now at the center of America's trade war, and it reveals something crucial about who really pays when tariffs enter the equation. Ferrari has announced a price increase of up to 10% on certain models imported to the US, effective April 2nd, 2025. This isn't because the cars suddenly cost more to build or because demand has skyrocketed. It's a direct response to tariffs on European Union manufactured vehicles. Their executive vice president of finance, Eric Duhalgouet, stated plainly that this price hike is designed specifically to offset the impact of tariffs in the US market, while prices remain unchanged elsewhere in the world. Now, you might be thinking, why should I care about Ferrari owners paying more? After all, anyone who can afford a $300,000 car can probably absorb another $30,000, right? But that misses the critical point. Ferrari's price increase is the canary in the coal mine, the most visible example of what's happening across every sector of consumer goods. If even Ferrari, with its wealthy customer base and premium pricing, feels compelled to pass tariff costs directly to consumers, what do you think is happening with the goods ordinary Americans buy every day? The emotional impact extends beyond the affluent buyers. Ferrari dealerships employ salespeople, mechanics, and support staff who may see commissions and hours cut if sales slow. And the principle at work that tariffs are paid not by foreign countries but by American consumers applies to products in every price range. Wonder if the stated goal of tariffs is to protect American industries. Why are European luxury cars the target? Is making a Ferrari more expensive really about saving American jobs? Or is it simply a tax that sounds good politically while ultimately being paid by American consumers? And most importantly, if even the odds, wealthy Ferrari customers are being asked to bear this burden directly, what chance do ordinary Americans have when these same policies affect their everyday purchases? What do you think about luxury goods being targeted by tariffs? Target, the bullseye on your grocery bill. The red bullseye logo, the clean aisles, the one-stop shopping experience that millions of Americans rely on weekly. Target, the retailer that promises to help you expect more, pay less. But that familiar slogan is facing a serious challenge, as Target finds itself directly in the crosshairs of America's expanding trade war, and the consequences will hit your family budget where it hurts most, in the grocery aisle. Target has announced that it's preparing to raise prices on imported goods, with a particular focus on produce from Mexico and Canada. This isn't a corporate decision to increase profits. It's a direct response to proposed 25% tariffs on our closest trading partners. The connection couldn't be clearer. CEO Brian Cornell told CNBC that Trump's tariff plan would likely result in immediate price increases, especially on fresh fruits and vegetables. Cornell warned bluntly that consumers could see changes over the next couple of days if tariffs take effect. Think about what this means for everyday Americans. Fresh produce, the very foods nutritionists tell us should make up the bulk of our diet, becoming more expensive overnight. Parents trying to feed their children healthy meals now facing even higher costs for basic nutrition. For many families already struggling with tight budgets, these increases could mean difficult choices, fewer fresh foods, smaller portions, or sacrificing other necessities to maintain healthy eating habits. Food insecurity, already a crisis for millions of Americans, will only worsen as affordable fresh produce becomes a luxury rather than a basic right. Target shoppers across income levels will feel the impact, but the burden falls heaviest on those with the least financial flexibility. Working families, seniors on fixed incomes, and single parents trying to stretch every dollar. How does making fresh fruits and vegetables more expensive strengthen America's economy? When did nutritious food become an acceptable casualty of trade policy? And who's looking out for the millions of families who will have to explain to their children why there are fewer strawberries, less broccoli, and more processed foods on their plates? The next time you check your receipt at Target and notice higher prices in the produce section, remember, this isn't about market forces or natural inflation. This is a policy choice with your family's health and budget as collateral damage. Is your family feeling the pinch of higher food prices? Next up is Best Buy, electronic sticker shock. The bright blue and yellow sign. The wide aisles are filled with the latest technology, the place where America goes for computers, TVs, and gadgets of all kinds. Best Buy, the electronics retailer that millions depend on for everything from smartphones to refrigerators. But Best Buy customers are about to experience serious sticker shock, and it has nothing to do with new features or improved technology. It's all about tariffs, and the connection between trade policy and the price you pay is about to become painfully clear. Best Buy has indicated that prices on electronics are highly likely to rise due to tariffs on imported components and finished products. During a March earnings call, CEO Corey Barry didn't mince words, explaining that the highly global, technical, and complex nature of the electronic supply chain means that tariff costs will inevitably be passed on to consumers. In other words, that new laptop, television, or gaming console you've been saving for, it's about to get significantly more expensive. Not because of new features or improved quality, but because of a tax being applied at the border. The human impact is profound. Parents trying to buy educational technology for their children. College students need laptops for their education. Families saving for a new television, seniors purchasing tablets to stay connected with grandchildren, all now facing higher barriers to accessing the technology that's become essential to modern life. For many Americans, these aren't luxury purchases, but necessary tools for education, work, and connection. The price increases, which could reach 10 to 20% on many items, might mean delaying purchases, buying lower quality alternatives, or going without entirely. And remember, Best Buy employs over 100,000 Americans whose livelihoods depend on consumer purchasing power. As prices rise and sales potentially slow, those jobs could be at risk, creating a secondary wave of economic hardship. But how does making technology more expensive for American families strengthen our position in the global economy? When did access to computers and other essential electronic tools become acceptable collateral damage in a trade dispute? And who benefits when American students and workers have less access to the technology they need to compete? The next time you're shocked by a price tag at Best Buy, remember, this isn't about companies gouging consumers. It's about policy choices that treat everyday technology as an appropriate target for taxation. Another company being affected is the Volkswagen, driving up costs. The familiar VW logo, the practical yet stylish vehicles that blend German engineering with affordability. Volkswagen, a brand that has represented accessible foreign craftsmanship for generations of American drivers. But Volkswagen is now at a crossroads, caught in the crossfire of America's expanding trade war. And for consumers looking to purchase these vehicles, the impact on their wallets will soon be impossible to ignore. Volkswagen has announced plans to keep prices steady through May 2025, but has warned of potential increases starting in June due to a 25% tariff on imported cars. This isn't speculation. It comes directly from Kjell Gruner, North America CEO, who acknowledged that prices could increase in June if tariffs persist. The connection is direct and undeniable. A car that costs $30,000 today could suddenly cost $37,500 in June, not because of new features, improved quality, or rising production costs, but purely because of a tax imposed at the border. For American families, this represents a profound financial hardship. A vehicle is typically the second largest purchase a family makes after their home. Many save for years for a down payment or carefully calculate monthly monthly payments to fit tight budgets. These tariff-driven price increases could mean families settling for older models with fewer safety features, extending already lengthy loan terms to 7 or 8 years, or postponing purchases entirely, affecting not just convenience but safety and reliability. The impact reaches beyond individual buyers. Volkswagen employs thousands of Americans at its Chattanooga, Tennessee plant and at dealerships across the country. As sales potentially slow due to higher prices, these American jobs could be at risk, creating a secondary wave of economic hardship. How does making foreign cars 25% more expensive truly help American auto workers? When did forcing working families to pay thousands more for reliable transportation become an economic strategy? And who exactly benefits when Americans must choose between financial strain and driving older, less safe vehicles? The next time you visit a Volkswagen dealership or any car dealership and see prices thousands higher than expected, remember, this isn't market forces at work. It's a specific policy choice with your family's transportation needs as collateral damage. Is your family delaying a vehicle purchase due to rising prices? Well, they are not alone, as this has affected many homes. Stanley Black & Decker, tools of the trade war. The distinctive yellow and black logo, the reliable tools that have built American homes and powered countless DIY projects. Stanley Black & Decker, a name synonymous with quality tools for professionals and homeowners alike. But now this iconic American brand finds itself wielding a different kind of tool price increases, and the connection to America's expanding trade war couldn't be clearer. Stanley Black & Decker has announced what they call surgical price actions on tools to counter tariff-driven cost increases, particularly from imported steel and components. CEO Donald Allen told investors that these selective price hikes are a direct response to new tariffs aimed at preserving profitability. Let's cut through the corporate language. The drills, saws, and measuring tools American contractors and homeowners rely on are about to get more expensive, not because they're better or cost more to make, but because of a tax being applied at the border. The real-world impact reaches deep into America's economy. Professional contractors now face higher costs for essential equipment, potentially forcing them to raise prices on home repairs and renovations. Weekend DIYers planning home improvements now find project budgets stretched thin by more expensive tools. For many Americans, these aren't luxury purchases, but necessary investments in maintaining their most valuable asset, their home. A basic drill set that once cost $100 might now cost $120 or more, forcing households to delay repairs or cut corners on quality. And remember, while Stanley Black & Decker is an American company, these tariffs are ironically making it harder for them to provide affordable tools to American workers and families. The very policies supposedly designed to help American manufacturing are increasing costs for iconic American brands. How does making tools more expensive for American workers strengthen our economy? When did the hammers and drills used to build and maintain our homes become acceptable targets for taxation? And who benefits when homeowners must postpone repairs or contractors lose business due to higher equipment costs? The next time you're shocked by the price tag on a Stanley Black & Decker tool, remember, this isn't about corporate greed. It's about policy choices that treat the literal tools of American labor as appropriate targets for taxation. Surely most business or home projects have been affected by rising tool prices. Adidas, the rising cost of staying active. The iconic three stripes, the athletic wear that has clothed everyone from Olympic athletes to everyday joggers. Adidas, a global brand that has become a staple in American closets and gym bags. But now, this athletic wear giant is running into a major obstacle, America's expanding trade war. And for consumers looking to stay active without breaking the bank, the finish line just moved further away. Adidas has indicated that prices on sportswear and footwear will rise if U.S. tariffs on imported goods remain in place. CEO Bjorn Gulden told analysts that persistent duties would cause a price increase in the market in general, affecting Adidas and its competitors alike. This isn't about premium materials or improved technology. It's a direct result of tariffs on imported apparel and footwear, categories where up to 97% of products sold in America come from overseas. The human impact extends far beyond fashion choices. Parents purchasing athletic shoes for growing children, fitness enthusiasts investing in proper gear to stay healthy, young athletes needing specialized equipment for their sports, all now facing higher costs for maintaining active, healthy lifestyles. A good pair of running shoes that once cost $120 might soon cost $150 or more, forcing families to choose between proper footwear and other necessities, or to keep children in ill-fitting shoes longer than is healthy for developing feet. The irony is palpable. In a nation facing an obesity epidemic, we're making it more expensive for Americans to engage in physical activity. The public health implications alone are deeply concerning, particularly for lower-income families already struggling to afford quality athletic gear. Just when did the clothing and footwear needed for exercise become appropriate targets for taxation? And who benefits when American families must choose between proper athletic equipment and other necessities? The next time you're shocked by the price tag on a pair of Adidas shoes or workout clothes, remember, this isn't about brand premiums or fashion trends. It's about specific policy choices that treat health and fitness equipment as acceptable collateral damage in a trade dispute. Ford, American icon, American prices. the blue oval logo, the F-150 trucks that have been America's best-selling vehicles for decades. Ford, perhaps the most quintessentially American automotive brand, founded by Henry Ford himself over a century ago. But even this iconic American manufacturer isn't immune to the ripple effects of America's expanding trade war, and for consumers looking to drive home in a new Ford, the sticker shock may soon be impossible to ignore. While Ford hasn't confirmed specific price hikes, the company is actively evaluating options to mitigate tariff impacts on their vehicles. CEO Jim Farley has acknowledged the company is exploring ways to offset tariff costs, suggesting price adjustments are likely coming. This reveals a crucial reality about modern manufacturing. Even American vehicles rely heavily on global supply chains. The steel, aluminum, computer chips, and countless components that go into a Ford vehicle come from a worldwide network of suppliers, all now subject to tariffs. The human impact cuts across American society. Blue-collar workers saving for a reliable pickup truck for their business, families needing a safe SUV for growing children, seniors looking for a comfortable sedan for retirement, all potentially facing thousands of dollars in additional costs, not because of new features or improved quality, but because of taxes applied to parts and materials. For many Americans, a vehicle isn't a luxury, but a necessity for getting to work, transporting family, and maintaining independence. These price increases, which could reach thousands per vehicle, might mean extending loans beyond prudent terms, settling for less safe older models, or postponing purchases entirely. And ironically, as prices rise and sales potentially slow, even American auto workers could face reduced hours or job insecurity, creating a secondary wave of economic hardship. So how does making American-branded vehicles more expensive for American families strengthen our manufacturing base? When did Ford, the company that literally pioneered affordable cars for average Americans, become acceptable collateral damage in a trade dispute, and who benefits when hardworking Americans must stretch their budgets even further to purchase vehicles made by American workers? General Motors, driving up the American dream. The GM logo. Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, Cadillac, brands that have defined American driving for generations. General Motors, the manufacturer whose history is intertwined with America's automotive heritage and middle-class prosperity. But now, this pillar of American manufacturing finds itself caught in the crossfire of America's expanding trade war. And for consumers dreaming of a new GM vehicle, that dream just got significantly more expensive. General Motors is actively assessing the impact of tariffs and may soon announce price increases across its vehicle lineup. CEO Mary Barra has stated that GM is evaluating the situation and will take necessary actions to protect the business corporate language that typically signals price hikes are coming. This reveals a fundamental truth about modern manufacturing. Even vehicles built in American factories by American workers rely on global supply chains. The materials and components that make up a Chevrolet or Buick come from suppliers worldwide, all now subject to tariffs that ultimately reach American consumers. The human impact reaches across American society. Young families saving for their first SUV, workers needing reliable transportation to jobs, rural Americans depending on pickup trucks for their livelihoods, all now facing potential price increases of thousands of dollars per vehicle, not because of improved features or quality, but because of taxes applied at the border. For many Americans, these aren't luxury purchases, but essential investments in mobility and economic opportunity. These price increases could mean families extending already lengthy loan terms to 7 or 8 years, purchasing older vehicles with fewer safety features, or postponing purchases entirely, affecting not just convenience, but safety and reliability. The irony is striking. Policies ostensibly designed to protect American industry may actually harm GM's sales, potentially threatening the very American jobs they claim to protect. So I ask you, how does making Chevrolets and Buicks more expensive for American families strengthen our manufacturing sector? When did iconic American vehicles become acceptable collateral damage in a trade dispute? And who benefits when hardworking Americans must choose between financial strain and driving older, less safe vehicles? The next time you're shocked by the price tag on a new GM vehicle and your family has to postpone a vehicle purchase due to rising prices, remember, this isn't about corporate profits. It's about specific policy choices with your family's transportation needs as collateral damage. Apple, the core of tech inflation. The bitten Apple logo, the sleek iPhones, MacBooks, and iPads that have revolutionized how we communicate, work, and play. Apple, perhaps America's most valuable company and a symbol of American innovation worldwide. But even this tech giant isn't immune to the expanding reach of America's trade war. And for consumers looking to upgrade their devices, the already premium prices are about to reach new heights. While Apple hasn't implemented specific price increases yet due to recent tariffs, the company has historically warned that tariffs pose a significant risk to product pricing. CEO Tim Cook has expressed concerns concerns that tariffs could raise costs for Apple products, particularly those reliant on Chinese components and assembly. Economic analysts project potential price increases of up to 40% on devices like iPhones due to tariffs on components from China and Vietnam, countries central to Apple's supply chain. This could mean an iPhone that costs $1,000 today might soon cost $1,400 or more. The human impact extends far beyond tech enthusiasts, students needing devices for education, remote workers depending on reliable technology for their livelihoods, seniors using iPads to stay connected with family, all potentially facing significant barriers to accessing technology that's become essential to modern life. For many Americans, these aren't luxury purchases, but necessary tools for education, work, and connection. The price increases might mean delaying upgrades, keeping older, less secure devices longer, settling for lower quality alternatives, or going without entirely creating digital divides along economic lines. And ironically, as prices rise and sales potentially slow, even American Apple employees in retail, design, and corporate roles could face reduced hours or job insecurity, creating a secondary wave of economic hardship. When did access to the digital tools needed for education and work become acceptable collateral damage in a trade dispute? And who benefits when American innovation becomes less affordable for the very Americans who need it to compete in today's economy? The next time you're shocked by the price of a new iPhone or MacBook, remember, this isn't about Apple's premium branding. It's about specific policy choices that treat essential technology as an appropriate target for taxation. Has your family delayed purchasing or upgrading technology due to rising prices? For American families, this means any relief in prices will likely be partial and tentative. Businesses remain hesitant to adjust pricing, knowing that tariffs could return to previous levels in just 3 months. Supply chains disrupted by extreme tariffs won't be immediately restored by a temporary reduction. The emotional roller coaster continues for households trying to budget amid uncertainty and businesses attempting to plan inventories and pricing. The psychological toll of this constant economic uncertainty compounds the financial strain already facing millions of Americans. Is a temporary reduction from extreme tariffs to merely high tariffs truly cause for celebration? When did extending economic uncertainty for another 3 months become a diplomatic achievement? And who benefits from this cycle of escalation and partial de-escalation while families continue facing elevated prices? The emotional appeal is powerful. Who wouldn't want to support American workers and stand up to foreign exploitation? The language evokes national pride and promises economic security through a return to an idealized past. But economic data tells a different story. The Tax Foundation estimates that 2018 to 2019 tariffs reduced U.S. GDP by 0.2% and led to 142,000 lost jobs, with the 2025 escalation projected to cut GDP by 0.9%, including retaliatory measures. The human impact reveals further contradictions. The communities promised revival through tariffs often continue struggling with economic uncertainty. For every steel job temporarily protected, many more are jeopardized in industries that use steel as an input, from auto manufacturing to construction. Workers find themselves in an impossible position, celebrated in political speeches while watching their employers struggle with higher costs and reduced competitiveness. The promised manufacturing renaissance remains elusive as global supply chains prove resistant to political demands. Thanks for watching. Do not forget to click on the card showing on the screen for future videos such as this.
Another major corporation is announcing layoffs. Hewlett-Packard is cutting as many as 6,000 jobs.
Financial experts are sounding the alarm of the potential impacts of the global trade war sparked by President Trump's tariffs.
This isn't just another layoff. It's signaling an impending economic war, and American workers are on the front line.
Did you ever think when you voted for President Trump that things were going to cost you more and you were going to lose money?
I never thought I was going to lose this much money, this fast.
Even the workers who voted for Trump are now facing the consequences of the very tariffs meant to protect them. Let's get into it. The braking situation. In today's tech landscape, a tectonic shift is reshaping the future of American manufacturing and jobs. HP, the tech giant known for personal computers and printers, has announced plans to lay off up to 2,000 more employees, bringing their total job cuts to a staggering 9,000, representing 15.5% of their global workforce. This dramatic action comes directly in response to the escalating trade war and tariff policies that have fundamentally altered the economics of global manufacturing. The announcement arrived just hours after Trump's sweeping tariff implementation, creating immediate ripple effects across the technology sector. The shockwaves are already being felt throughout the industry, with HP's shares falling 3.5% in extended trading following the announcement, a clear signal of market uncertainty. HP's decision speaks to a broader economic crisis unfolding in real time across America's manufacturing sector. While not closing factories outright, the company is executing a bold and unprecedented strategic maneuver, relocating 90% of its North America-focused focused manufacturing outside of China by October 2025, a move directly aimed at avoiding the crushing impact of tariffs on Chinese imports. This isn't simply a cost-cutting measure, it represents a complete reconfiguration of a global supply chain built over decades. HP CEO Enrique Lores has emphasized that the company has been enhancing supply chain resilience over recent years, establishing factories in countries like Thailand, with plans to shift at least 50% of notebook manufacturing out of China within 2 to 3 years. But the accelerated timeline speaks to the urgency of the situation. The human toll of these decisions is severe and immediate. Factory workers, supply chain personnel, support staff, HR positions, and those in legacy tech roles are all targeted in this strategic culling. These aren't just statistics. They represent American livelihoods suddenly thrown into uncertainty as geopolitical forces reshape the employment landscape. The economic pain extends far beyond HP's workforce. Morgan Stanley research indicates that the added tariff cost could equate to nearly the entirety of HP's expected net income in 2025, a staggering financial burden that threatens the very viability of American technology manufacturing. For the quarter ending April 2025, HP's earnings per share outlook was 75.85 cents, falling below analyst expectations of 85 cents, directly attributed to rising component costs and tariffs on Chinese goods. This isn't happening in isolation. Across the manufacturing sector, a similar story is unfolding with frightening speed and scale. Stellantis has temporarily laid off approximately 900 U.S. workers across 5 plants in Michigan and Indiana due to tariff impacts. The affected facilities include Warren Stamping, Sterling Stamping, Indiana Transmission Plant, Kokomo Transmission Plant, and Kokomo Casting Plant, representing a cross-section of America's automotive manufacturing backbone.
Fear and frustration outside this Stellantis plant in Windsor, Ontario.
Could be 2 weeks, could be 2 months, who knows? We are very worried.
The immediate consequences are stark and troubling. Fear and uncertainty grip workers across these sectors, with union protections only providing temporary relief before the economic reality sets in. The anxiety is palpable as workers face the prospect of lost income and an uncertain future in a rapidly changing job market. Beyond individual companies, entire industry supply chains are fracturing under the pressure of these tariffs. The automotive sector has been particularly hard hit given its reliance on cross-border supply chains. For instance, Nissan's Infiniti brand paused production of 2 Mexico-built crossovers for the U.S. market due to the 25% tariffs. The economic fallout extends to increased costs for consumers. The Consumer Technology Association estimates that proposed tariffs could increase laptop and tablet prices by up to 46% and smartphones by 26%. These aren't theoretical concerns. Acer has already announced a 10% price hike for U.S. products due to tariffs, indicating an industry-wide pressure that will soon hit American consumers directly in their wallets.
Canada's auto industry says as tariffs stack up, so will vehicle prices.
These tariffs are going to drive up new vehicle prices by between $4,700 US and $10,000 US.
Fears of consumers putting the brakes on new purchases are already having an effect south of the border.
The broader economic implications are deeply concerning. Goldman Sachs projects that tariffs will create approximately 100,000 manufacturing jobs, but could destroy 500,000 jobs across other sectors, resulting in a net loss of 400,000 jobs. This stark calculation reflects the trade-off between protecting specific domestic industries and the broader economic cost of reduced trade. Even more alarming, economic experts suggest that job losses could be in the millions due to the tariffs. The unemployment rate could rise from 4.2% to 4.7% by the end of 2025, representing approximately 500,000 people affected. This projection is based on increased costs for businesses and potential reductions in hiring, a ripple effect that threatens to undermine years of economic progress. The global perspective is equally troubling. The IMF has downgraded its global growth forecast to 2.8% for 2025, down from 3.3% in 2024, attributing much of this to U.S. tariffs. This slowdown is expected to persist, with inflation forecast rising to 4.3% in 2025 and 3.6% in 2026, eroding purchasing power and reducing consumer spending. The uncertainty created by these tariffs has sent shockwaves through financial markets. The S&P 500 suffered its worst day since 2020, with European stocks closing 2.7% lower due to tariff-related reactions. Small-cap stocks, as measured by the Russell 2000, entered a bear market, becoming the first major U.S. stock measure to do so, highlighting the breadth of the sell-off. The impact on global trade is equally severe. Under current conditions, global merchandise trade volume is likely to fall by 0.2% in 2025 with severe downside risks, including the potential reactivation of reciprocal tariffs, which could lead to a 1.5% decline. North America is particularly hard hit, with exports forecasted to drop by 12.6% and imports by 9.6%, directly impacting workforce-related industries. The analysis and ramifications. Behind the headlines, HP's strategic response to tariffs reveals a sobering economic reality. The company is aiming to save an additional $300 million by the end of fiscal 2025 through these cost-saving measures, but will incur approximately $150 million in restructuring charges, primarily from cash labor costs. This financial calculus demonstrates the brutal arithmetic facing American technology companies caught in the crossfire of trade policies. The tariff impact on HP's bottom line is severe and immediate. For Q1 2025, HP reported $13.5 billion in revenue, up 2.4% from the prior year period, yet the company's profit outlook remains constrained by tariff pressures. HP's Future Ready transformation plan, initially targeting $1.4 billion in savings, has now been revised upward to $1.9 billion, a direct response to the escalating economic pressures created by tariffs. But the consequences extend far beyond corporate balance sheets. For American workers, the outlook is increasingly grim. Research suggests tariffs will reduce hours worked by 664,000 full-time equivalent jobs in 2025, based on historical trends from previous trade wars. The human toll is devastating, with workers in manufacturing, logistics, and support roles facing sudden unemployment and uncertain futures.
Jim is a Republican who voted for Donald Trump 3 times.
How do you feel about your vote for Donald Trump now?
Well, I feel like perhaps I should have considered some other options.
Among other things, Jim imports packaging supplies for his honey, so he's paying real close attention to the tariffs Trump just put in place.
The impact on specific sectors is particularly severe. In the logistics industry, a 35% drop-off in imports could lead to a 5% to 6% decline in total freight across the U.S., potentially resulting in 400,000 to 500,000 job losses in logistics alone. This cascading effect threatens to undermine entire sectors of the economy that depend on the smooth functioning of global supply chains. A particularly troubling aspect of this economic disruption is the potential for product shortages reminiscent of the pandemic era. Supply chain logistics group Vision reports a drastic drop in shipping container bookings from China to the U.S. in recent weeks, while data from the Port of Los Angeles shows a declining volume of imports as well. This significant reduction in imports threatens to create widespread product shortages across multiple categories.
Financial experts are sounding the alarm of the potential impacts of the global trade war sparked by President Trump's tariffs. They say that it could trigger a slump in shipments to the U.S. and empty shelves in stores. Supply chain logistics groups Vision reports a drastic drop in shipping container bookings from China to the U.S. in recent weeks, as we see here in this chart.
For consumers, the impact will be felt directly in their wallets and in product availability. The Tax Foundation estimates an average tax increase of nearly $1,300 per U.S. household in 2025 due to tariffs. This reduced disposable income will potentially affect jobs in consumer-facing industries, creating a dangerous downward economic spiral. Even more alarming is the potential for product shortages that could affect essential items. As early as June 2025, consumers may begin to notice intermittent shortages, with more significant disruptions expected during the back-to-school shopping season in August. Products like backpacks, school supplies, batteries, nutritional supplements, and over-the-counter medicine may be unavailable or in limited supply. Even holiday goods for Christmas 2025 could be affected, despite the seemingly distant timeline, due to the long lead times required for global supply chains. The disruption extends beyond retail goods to critical components for machinery and infrastructure. Air conditioning repair parts, for instance, could become scarce, leading to situations where essential home repairs become impossible due to unavailable components, a particularly concerning prospect during summer months. From a macroeconomic perspective, the situation appears increasingly dire. Penn Wharton budget model projections indicate that tariffs could reduce GDP by 5.1% to 6.3% by 2054, depending on how the burden is distributed between consumers and businesses. Wages could fall by 3.9% to 5.8% over the same period. These reductions are noted to be more than twice as severe as those from a revenue-equivalent corporate tax increase from 21% to 36%, highlighting the tariffs' distortive impact on the economy. The global dimensions of this crisis cannot be overstated. China is refusing to negotiate with President Trump on U.S. tariffs, escalating the trade war to new heights by telling Chinese airlines not to order jets from Boeing, America's biggest biggest exporter. This retaliation extends to critical rare earths, Hollywood films, and fentanyl talks, creating a multi-layered economic confrontation with far-reaching implications.
China is refusing to negotiate with President Trump on U.S. tariffs. In fact, the nation is taking the trade war to a new height. China is refusing to accept deliveries of Boeing jets. NBC's Janice Mackey-Frayer reports the move would not just be to blow to America's largest exporter, but also to the U.S. economy.
California is fighting back against the tariff authority, with Governor Gavin Newsom filing a lawsuit in federal court suing Trump over his use of emergency powers to enact sweeping global tariffs. The lawsuit argues Trump lacks the authority to enact such sweeping tariffs, claiming such action requires congressional approval. This legal challenge adds another layer of uncertainty to an already volatile economic situation. The impact on specific industries is particularly severe. Manufacturing firms, concentrated in tariff-exposed regions, are significantly more likely to reduce hiring, with about 32% reporting plans to decrease employment due to tariff concerns. Similarly, firms in construction, mining, and utilities express notable employment concerns, with nearly 22% expecting decreased hiring, and retail and wholesale trade seeing about one quarter anticipating hiring declines. For small businesses and farmers, the consequences are especially dire. Jim Hartman, a honey farmer in Linden, North Carolina, faces a potential loss of $150,000 annually, approximately 50% of his revenue, due to federal program cuts associated with tariff policies. His story illustrates the direct impact on rural America, where agricultural producers are caught between rising costs and diminishing revenues.
For a lot of other local farmers around here, it was a major source of reliable revenue. For me, it's going to cost me around $150,000 a year.
$150,000.
Yeah, roughly 50% of my revenue.
The situation for soybean farmers is equally troubling. Scott Metzger, an Ohio soybean farmer and board member for the American Soybean Association, describes the tariffs as an alarming concern in an already tight farm economy. With China purchasing 52% of American soybean exports last year, the tariffs create a dangerous uncertainty for farmers who have not yet recovered from previous trade wars. In the broader context of American manufacturing, HP's decision to relocate production outside China rather than returning it to the United States underscores a troubling reality. Despite rhetoric about bringing manufacturing back to America, the economic incentives created by tariffs are instead pushing production to third countries like Vietnam, Thailand, and Mexico. HP is making some investments in U.S. manufacturing, particularly in Corvallis, Oregon, with up to $50 million in funding from the CHIPS and Science Act, creating over 100 manufacturing jobs. But this represents a fraction of the production being relocated globally. The financial markets have registered severe concerns about these economic trends. The chip-making sector was particularly hard hit, with the VanEck Semiconductor ETF shedding nearly 7%. Companies saw steep declines. Qorvo and Micron Technology plunged more than 12%, while Qualcomm, Broadcom, and Lam Research each dropped over 7%. Nvidia and Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing slumped more than 6%, and Advanced Micro Devices fell about 5%. These drops were driven by fears that tariffs would quell demand for technology gadgets and electronics. Perhaps most concerning is the risk of a broader economic downturn. Economists warn that tariffs could lead to stagflation, rising inflation alongside higher unemployment. Gregory Dacco from EY predicts consumer prices could accelerate by 1 percentage point by year-end, pushing inflation close to 4%, creating additional pain for American consumers already struggling with elevated prices. Jason Furman emphasizes that tariffs create both a supply shock, increasing prices and unemployment, and a demand shock due to uncertainty, further raising unemployment, potentially causing a recession in the short term. The future implications. As the dust settles on HP's dramatic announcement, a troubling question emerges. Are we witnessing just the beginning of a much larger economic transformation? The evidence suggests this may indeed be the case, with implications that will reverberate through the American economy for years to come. The IMF has downgraded its global growth forecast to 2.8% for 2025, down from 3.3% in 2024, attributing much of this slowdown to U.S. tariffs. This global deceleration threatens to undermine economic progress across multiple sectors, creating a challenging environment for job creation and wage growth. For American workers, the outlook is increasingly bleak. The Richmond Fed reports a relative employment decline of about 1.8% to 2.6% due to tariffs, translating to approximately 220,000 to 320,000 jobs lost, especially when accounting for China's retaliatory measures. The Budget Lab at Yale provides an even more alarming assessment, estimating that all 2025 tariffs will increase the unemployment rate by 0.6% percentage points by the end of 2025, resulting in payroll employment being 740,000 to 770,000 lower. The human dimension of these statistics is powerful and disturbing. Consider the personal testimony of farmers like Jim Hartman, whose livelihood has been directly impacted by tariff policies. For consumers, the consequences will be both immediate and lasting. JP Morgan Research estimates that the new tariffs could raise PCE prices by 1.5% in 2025, reflecting broader inflationary effects that will erode purchasing power across the economy. The Consumer Technology Association warns of potentially dramatic price increases, with laptop and tablet prices potentially jumping by up to 46% and smartphones by 26%, directly impacting Americans' access to essential technology. The disruption to supply chains threatens to create significant product shortages reminiscent of the pandemic era. Industry experts warn that these shortages could appear as early as June 2025, with more significant disruptions expected during the back-to-school shopping season. The situation is so severe that supply chain experts are recommending consumers begin Christmas shopping immediately, as holiday goods may be unavailable or in limited supply by the traditional shopping season.
So I'm going to say something that is absolutely going to seem absurd, but there is a potential of what's happening right now, even if we get a deal in the next 3 months. I'm specifically talking about China. Even if we get a deal, you could have problems getting your hands on holiday goods. And so things about Christmas, those Christmas gifts, it sounds absurd, but you might want to start doing your Christmas shopping right now, because when you go to shop in the stores in October, November, and December, the items that you would expect to normally see may not be there, or the selection may not be there.
The vulnerability of specific sectors is particularly concerning. According to the CEPR, sectors like electrical equipment and electronics and transport equipment, with a GVC dependency of around 30%, face sharp falls in production due to tariff-induced disruptions. Global trade is expected to contract by 5.5% to 8.5% depending on the scenario, with GVC trade shrinking by 2% more than direct bilateral trade. Transport equipment and electrical equipment and electronics could contract by 16% and 12% respectively in a full plus retaliation scenario, likely leading to significant job losses in these sectors. Small and vulnerable economies face particularly severe risks from these trade disruptions. The UNCTAD highlights that 28 trading partners contribute less than 0.1% each to the total U.S. trade deficit, yet face significant tariffs, hindering their exportability. For countries like Madagascar, Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Zambia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, which depend heavily on exports to the U.S. market, the tariffs threaten to devastate local economies and exacerbate global inequality. The risk of a broader economic downturn looms large over these specific sectoral impacts. Economists warn that tariffs could lead to stagflation, rising inflation alongside higher unemployment. Jason Furman emphasizes that tariffs create both a supply shock, increasing prices and unemployment, and a demand shock due to uncertainty, further raising unemployment, potentially causing a recession in the short term, leading to worse job outcomes long term. The financial markets have already registered severe concerns about these economic trends. The S&P 500 suffered its worst day since 2020, with European stocks closing 2.7% lower due to tariff-related reactions. Small-cap stocks entered a bear market, becoming the first major U.S. stock measure to do so, highlighting the breadth of the sell-off. For HP and similar technology companies, the tariff impact creates a troubling dilemma. Morgan Stanley research indicates that the added tariff cost could equate to nearly the entirety of HP's expected net income in 2025, a staggering financial burden that threatens the very viability of American technology manufacturing. Companies face a stark choice: absorb these costs and devastate profitability, pass them on to consumers through higher prices, or restructure global operations to avoid the tariffs entirely. HP's decision to pursue the third option reflects a pragmatic assessment of the economic realities, but carries significant consequences for American workers and consumers. The automotive sector provides a parallel example of these challenges. Stellantis temporarily laid off approximately 900 U.S. workers across 5 plants in Michigan and Indiana due to reduced production at their Canadian and Mexican plants, prompted by the 25% tariffs on imported vehicles. Most workers are protected from immediate pay loss due to union contracts, but prolonged shutdowns could risk lost income, illustrating the personal cost of these policy decisions.
Layoffs also beginning in the U.S. Midwest and Mexico.
I'm not surprised that you're seeing immediate reactions. This is what the U.S. policy will do.
The situation for agricultural producers is equally challenging. Scott Metzger, an Ohio soybean farmer serving on the board of directors for the American Soybean Association, expresses deep concern about the tariffs' impact on an already tight farm economy. He warns that if tariffs continue into the fall or next year, some farms could go out of business, with the next generation potentially unable or unwilling to continue in agriculture. The impact of last year's drought, which reduced his crop by approximately half, compounds the financial strain created by tariffs.
A fear that we have if this continues into the fall or even into next year, there's a potential that, there'll be some farms go out of business. You could have the next generation not want to come back or not able to come back just because of the economies or the farm situation in general. And adding these tariffs to this, there's just no room for error. But personally, in our operation in the state of Ohio last year, we were in extreme drought. And we roughly had half of a soybean crop and a corn crop last year.
The legal challenges to these policies add another layer of uncertainty. California Governor Gavin Newsom is suing Trump over his use of emergency powers to enact sweeping global tariffs, arguing that such action requires congressional approval. This legal challenge could potentially invalidate or modify the tariff structure, creating additional volatility for businesses attempting to plan their operations. Meanwhile, China's refusal to negotiate with President Trump on U.S. tariffs further complicates the situation. By targeting Boeing, America's biggest exporter, and placing export controls on critical rare earths, China has signaled a willingness to engage in a prolonged economic confrontation with potentially devastating consequences for global trade. The broader economic narrative emerging from these developments is deeply troubling. Far from restoring American manufacturing supremacy, tariffs appear to be accelerating a global reorganization of production that may leave the United States increasingly isolated and economically vulnerable. The interconnected nature of modern supply chains means that disruptions in one sector quickly cascade through the entire economy, creating widespread uncertainty and volatility. For HP specifically, the future remains uncertain. The company is modernizing its facility in Corvallis, Oregon, with up to $50 million in funding from the CHIPS and Science Act, creating over 100 manufacturing jobs. However, this represents a small fraction of the production being relocated globally, underscoring the limited impact of current policies on reshoring manufacturing to the United States. The human cost of these economic transformations cannot be overstated. Beyond the statistics and projections lie real people and communities facing sudden unemployment, financial insecurity, and uncertain futures. The laid-off HP employees, automotive workers, farmers, and countless others across affected industries represent the human dimension of policy decisions that often seem abstract and distant. The situation remains fluid, with policy changes and corporate responses evolving rapidly. HP's CEO, Enrique Lores, has stated that price increases are a last resort, but some targeted increases are assumed, given the tariff-induced cost pressures. This reflects the difficult choices facing businesses as they navigate the new economic landscape created by tariff policies. For consumers, the combination of higher prices and reduced product availability creates a troubling scenario reminiscent of pandemic-era shortages. The potential disruption to essential items like over-the-counter medications, air conditioning repair parts, and school supplies could have significant impacts on daily life, particularly for vulnerable populations with limited resources to absorb higher costs or find alternatives. Perhaps most concerning for long-term economic prospects is the potential impact on innovation and competitiveness. The tariff-induced disruption to global supply chains threatens to undermine the collaborative innovation ecosystem that has driven technological progress for decades. As companies like HP restructure their operations to avoid tariffs rather than optimize for innovation and efficiency, the pace of technological advancement could slow, with negative implications for productivity and economic growth. The impact on small businesses is particularly severe, as they lack the resources and global footprint to navigate these disruptions as effectively as large corporations. The inability to make long-term decisions due to rapidly changing policies creates a paralyzing uncertainty for small business owners, threatening the entrepreneurial dynamism that has historically been a key driver of American economic vitality.
It's hard to make a decision. We had an idea yesterday after the announcement of, well, maybe we can export to Australia, repackage the products, and then re-import them from there. But because policy changes every 36 hours or so. I don't want to make that decision and make that move only for something else to change in just a couple more days. I'm paralyzed. I can't even make a decision right now.
The path forward remains uncertain, but the evidence suggests a challenging period of adjustment lies ahead. The resilience of American workers and businesses will be tested, and the ultimate outcome will depend on how effectively we navigate these unprecedented economic disruptions. What is clear is that we are witnessing a fundamental transformation of the global economic order, with implications that will be felt for years to come. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.